I'm Norm Easterbrook, Director of RiverCenter here in Columbus, Georgia. For more than a year, the COVID-19 crisis has been ravaging our entertainment, arts, and cultural community. We anxiously await the day that we will once again welcome audiences, and that day is now in sight. With what we have learned from science and the health community, and with the advent of the vaccine for COVID-19, we are all planning on how we will restart the arts in Columbus, Georgia. Here at RiverCenter, we thought it would be useful to share with audiences and patrons of the arts how our various institutions have been managing this past year, but most importantly, what to look forward to as we restart the arts. RiverCenter Arts in the Spotlight is a series of conversations focusing on how restarting our entertainment, art, and cultural organizations will look and what that means to our community. Let's start the conversation. Our conversation today is with Marianne Richter, who is director of the Columbus Museum. You've been with the museum since 2015.
That's right.
So thank you very much for coming to be a part of this and to chat with us in what is an experiment to see if we can kind of help spread the good word about where we're going post-COVID and what things look like as we see the light at the end of the tunnel. I just had a couple of things I wanted you to share with us all. Prior to this, you were executive director of the Swope Museum.
Swope Art Museum in Terre Haute, Indiana, yes.
Okay, and curator of the Union League Club, which I'm interested to hear about, of Chicago.
Yes, did that a while.
Yeah, and then also curator of American Art at the Dayton Art Institute in Ohio. Tell us about your background in all of those areas, what the evolution was.
Okay, I'd be happy to. I got into museum field just after graduating college. I was an art history major and trying to figure out what I was going to do with that. And my college, which was Oberlin College, had an internship for the year at the museum, which is a really wonderful college art museum. And that was when it all clicked for me. So one of the things that at least was true when I was starting out was that to advance sometimes in the field you had to be willing to move. So I got my master's at the University of Delaware and I stayed there for my first job, which was in museum education at the Brandywine River Museum. And then I went to Dayton because I was interested in the curatorial side of things. So Dayton Art Institute is a fairly old museum. It opened in the 20s and had a substantial collection of American art. We have a show coming up at the museum here in Columbus of quilts that is courtesy in part because of you connecting us with the donor. And one of the very first shows I did in Dayton was a quilt show on Ohio's quilt makers, and that was a really fun project to work on. I took a kind of a divergence and thought maybe I wanted to try something other than museums for a bit, and so I worked at the Union League Club of Chicago, which is in the Loop in downtown Chicago, as the curator for almost 14 years, and that collection started in 1879 and included some major acquisitions, particularly in those early years of including a Monet. And by the time I left, we had a conservator on staff as well as me and sometimes an assistant, and did exhibitions and continued to collect work. And so it was very rewarding, and it was also my best position for kind of understanding the hospitality side of things. I think a lot of times in museums, people can, if they're not on the visitor services side, maybe so focused on their research, they are not used to that other aspect. And so that was something that was really, really helpful to me.
And I bet coming into being even more helpful now.
Absolutely, right. There are so many times when I'll think, I'm really glad, or I'll hear people talking about, peers, so talking about customer service or other things, and I'll think, I'm really glad, I figured that out because I had to some time ago. So, and the Swope Art Museum is a smaller museum than Columbus, but it's a collection of American art, and it does have some true, incredibly spectacular examples in it, most notably a painting by Edward Hopper, a top-notch Grant Wood, and also a top-notch painting by Thomas Hart Benton. So kind of mid-20th century major artists. And that Edward Hopper when I was there was actually on loan to an exhibition that was at the Whitney Museum. So that was exciting for us.
Yeah, yeah. What were the things that attracted you to Columbus here?
Most importantly, the job and the collection. I have to think I'm going to enjoy working with a collection, I think, to be able to really get into a job. So when I came and visited, I liked the collection very much. I liked the fact there was a history collection, and that was kind of a new wrinkle. That was, while not my major, it was a minor in college, and American history is a favorite subject for me. So I enjoyed that aspect. And then it also worked for me personally because I have a lot of family in the state who've ended up mostly in Atlanta, but also kind of in the Cherry Log area. So, and that's been great for me.
I want to ask, I'm always curious about this because I want to ask a slightly personal question.
Yep.
What, in your formative years, what was the inciting incident that made you think about doing what you do today, that caused your interest?
Okay, there were a few probably, but the most vivid memory I have for art was when I would have been 7. We went to Europe on our first family trip. And my grandmother was at that point living in Germany, as was an aunt and cousins. So we went for that, but we also did some other things. And we went to Paris and went to the Louvre. And my 2 memories of that were that I touched, I think, the foot of the Venus de Milo, and a guard came on me, of course, but I was okay. I remember that. And then, but more importantly, we went into this room that was the story of the life of Marie de Medici from the 1600s, I think. Her life might have been earlier, but it was by Peter Paul Rubens, who was the 1600s. And it seemed like a picture book to me. And so I wanted to know what was happening in every single one of those paintings, and they're enormous, and there are a lot of them. So my mother had to stay back while everybody went on. And then after that, I can remember getting books by 7th grade on the story of art and poring over all the artists and reading up on them, and just from there, it just continued.
Yeah, if you could see behind my mask, I'm smiling because I love to hear that insight about what causes people to do what they do and what their inspiration is. And clearly you've stuck with it for long enough to make a real wonderful career of it. Just a thing I'm also curious about, if someone were to come to you today and say, I want to do what you do, would you advise them to do it? What steps would you, what would you tell them?
I think I would say I would probably advise them to do it. I'd make sure that this is really what excites them, because if you're going to go in the arts, you have to be fairly tough, particularly in the earlier years. I would say, you need to know if what you wanted to do is be a curator, then or something more in the research line, then you really need to become fluent and expert in that content area. And in my era, you could do that with a master's. I later did a doctoral program. I'm ABD, so I didn't finish. But a lot of people may take it to the PhD level, which I think in today's economy is sort of a gamble. Or you study museum education or art education. You can go at it that way. Other people may want to do it from a fundraising point of view, but I still think there are jobs out there, but you definitely, as you know, in your field, you have to basically stick with it. And I think also the first couple of jobs may not, be ideal, but then there's sort of this point, at least in what I've seen in museums, where a lot of people may decide they want to do something else. It's not for them, and then the opportunities seem to be a little greater. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you found that in what you do as well.
Yeah.
You just have to stick with it.
Yeah, just stick to it. Now, we're sitting in the RiverCenter. We've got a fixed seat theater with lobby spaces, and we cause audiences to come to the theater. COVID has forced on us, some very distinctive protocols. Museum protocols are different. Would you talk a little bit about what your institution is doing, how you're welcoming the public, and what the public can expect right now when they come to visit with you?
We are asking for people to continue to wear masks, since that is still the advice from the CDC, but also from our special partner, the Muskogee County School District, which owns the building. So we do ask that. We have marked on our stairways, should there be a crowd, although there really isn't, directions so people know which direction to go on the stairs. And we have maximum room count information as well, and we're aware of that. There are hand sanitizer stations. We upgraded our filtering system as well to provide that. There was an article that came out about a week ago saying museums are one of the safest, and actually theaters were listed too, safest environments, because right now there are not a lot of people in there. Our entire space is 89,000 square feet. So there's a lot of space between people, and of course most people in museums are looking independently in galleries. What we're missing right now in person are large programs or things inside the building, so which is normally a very major part of what we do. But people who have come have felt so far, and we've heard positives, that they feel safe about it.
Just quickly, I want to touch a little bit at least on what's going on in the museum now. You've got some things up, you've got some programs running as well, so just give us one or two.
We are starting to offer tours outside of our outdoor sculpture collection, so you can go to the website to sign up for that. We just opened a show of a contemporary artist named Paulo Arau, in which he selected drawings from our collection and created textiles in response to that. And we're currently installing a show that opens towards the end of this month that is called 7+7, and it is 7 established, more known, we'll say, artists in Columbus displaying their work, and then each of them selects an artist they think people should know more about. So that will be opening later this month. And then we have in our Legacy Gallery, our History Gallery, a show on the civic engagement at the local level that we did not know how timely that would be, but it's really looking at how politics and also things like the school district, all of that works locally. So that's also on view for people to see, plus our permanent collection.
We will have you back if you're willing to talk about each of those, and we'll need to look at the calendar and see how they time out. The one last question that I have for you: if there's something you wanted to share with your patrons and with people who visit the museum, as you look to the future of opening, are there any good words you have for them, or something that they should look forward to?
We're hopeful that we will be back to more in-person programming, maybe in the fall. We are looking at some summer camps as well, if being very careful to adhere to protocol. So that will be coming. Farther off, summer of 2022. So thinking well beyond the pandemic. We have a major show that I always want to promote at this point, because it is going to be nationally significant as well, and that is a retrospective of the work of Alma Thomas, who was originally from Columbus. It's opening with our partner organization this summer at the Chrysler Museum of Art in Norfolk, Virginia, and it will be going to the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C., and the Frist in Nashville before coming to Columbus. But that's going to be major, and also includes a publication from Yale University Press. So this is, we have a film that's part of it as well, so it's going to be really great. But there'll be many things before then as well. But and AFLAC is being a very generous main sponsor for that as well.
That's great. Well, like I say, we'll have you back to talk about all of those things. And thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I appreciate letting us get to know you, and so our folks that access this stream can also get to know you as well. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, and I look forward to coming back to the RiverCenter once it's open for shows again. I've missed it.
Yep, the day is in the future vision right now.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you for joining us for this RiverCenter Arts in the Spotlight conversation. If you would like to suggest a topic, organization, or individual for us to include in these conversations, please contact us through our Facebook page or through our website. We look forward to continuing these conversations as we restart the arts in the Columbus community.